here with Rick Klink, and we're talking about Bitcoin and the Backed, launching it up, and Fidelity as well. We'll see you guys right after this. All right, guys, welcome back. I'm here with Rick Klink, the man himself, from the Malta Digital Exchange. Welcome, Rick, to the show.
Great to be here, Fred.
It's awesome to have you on the show, man.
Thank you very much. I've been trying to get on for a while, and I finally made it here, right? So,
yes!
Great news. Thank you again.
Talking about a little market update right now in terms of where we're at, how we're trading. We're going all right. We're going a little bit sideways, really, aren't we? It's not really moving too much around.
All sideways, all sideways.
All sideways. It's kind of cool. Bitcoin right now, it's coming up to its 10-year anniversary. It's 10-year at the end of this month, and it is preparing for institutional trading. We've got Backed coming online on December 12, which is a big deal, and it's actually... we've got this tweet coming up here. Just bring it up for you guys. Our first contracts will be physically delivered. Bitcoin futures contracts versus fiat currencies, including USD, GBP, and Euro. For example, buying one USD Bitcoin futures contract will result in daily delivery of one Bitcoin into the customer's account.
Perfect.
This is a big deal, right? Because most futures contracts, they're not actually settled physically.
That's right. Yep.
How do you feel about that, Rick? Is this a big deal for the market?
It's moving into the real world. We're combining the worlds between futures, all this stuff. There's with custody appearing now, what's going on in the market? It's all coming more and more institutional as we're moving forward.
So really, I think what's key here, and let's break this down. ICE is a major exchange, right? New York Stock Exchange.
Absolutely.
Institutional traders they would feel a lot of confidence with that. But a lot of institutions and other traders are really trading, derivatives or futures to some extent, with the CME. So that's not physically Bitcoin.
That's not physically. That's right. That's right.
Whereas this is real Bitcoin. So if you buy one contract, you get one Bitcoin or whatever the exchange might be. So the Backed must physically purchase this Bitcoin from somewhere in the market.
Yep, it'll all be backed. It's like we have gold-backed things where it's backed with a physical asset. So you can be confident that with it being backed, that like gold-backed, like cash, there's something behind what you're buying. So if there's a problem, it's sitting there somewhere.
Okay. I think the big deal here is, guys, as well, is that you've got to remember that there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. And because of that, if they're going to have to physically settle, and lots of institutions are buying Bitcoin and they've bought this trade, there's only a limited supply. And again, we're bringing in this squeezing and the 2020 halvening that potentially is going to happen, going from 12.5 Bitcoin every 10 minutes to 6.25. Again, halving the supply that's being sold by miners continuously every 10 minutes. Think about that from a perspective of demand and supply. How much of an impact do you think this is going to have, Rick?
Scarcity is everything. Scarcity is what we need. So we're running out. So as you said, as it gets out there, that it'll only add to the value from a scarcity point of view.
I think it's a big deal. Guys, we're going to talk about Fidelity in a sec, but in the meantime, I really want to talk about Rick and give you guys a bit of an introduction. I'm absolutely thrilled that Rick could join us. He's come over from Malta. I think he's pretty much met everyone in cryptocurrency. He's showed me his secret image collection, and in fact, I think he has met, I'm pretty sure we've got John McAfee, CZ, Brock Pierce, and I'm not sure who else there is. Who else? I guess, there's yourself, Rick.
Oh, and yourself now. I'll add the photo. I've got the photo of yourself, Fred. I've completed the collection now.
I don't know about that. We're working on that.
But no, it's good. No, just
a bit of background. Yeah, how did you get into this industry?
Yeah, sure. So, my background. So I'm a computer science graduate. I was at IBM for 10 years. Worked with them in computers and hardware, and left IBM, and we then wrote the trading platform for ComSec way back in early 2000s. Went from there, took that trading software, then went and started up a broker now called Open Markets, which today is the largest independent broker in Australia.
50 billion in trading per annum.
50 billion in trading value. So it's the one, but it's the B2B behind a lot of the Raise and Acorn. So Open Markets is a B2B API business. It's the major one in the back end there behind a lot of these fintechs.
Okay. And so there's Paratech, There's open markets, and I believe you said as well you were involved in the development of ComSec as well.
Yeah. So originally back there that we wrote the first web charts well back in 1998, 1999. So charting on the internet, and we had a call one day from someone from ComSec said, "We like your charts, we'd like to use them," and that started quite a long relationship with ComSec, which helped us build up all the software we're using today now for our Malta exchange.
Okay. So needless to say, we can say you've had experience in trading, you've had experience in securities. Tell us now, this has led to this incredible opportunity, right, with tokenized assets, with the Malta Digital Exchange being the penultimate place where this can be traded, and it's a great venue. Tell us about, you've got security tokens, virtual financial assets, and maybe if you can talk us through that and what that is, and tell us a bit about what's happening there with the Malta Exchange.
Okay, so a bit of background. So we've got the two things. We've got the virtual financial asset, which for everybody, it's basically a utility token or an ICO in the traditional sense. So in a lot of cases, it's an unbacked token. Then we have what we're looking at, which is security tokens. So a security token, for all intents and purposes, is an asset-backed token. Now, traditionally, as we all know, in the ICO, the utility space, it hasn't been regulated. So globally, so for here in Australia, you don't need a license to run an exchange. You just need to be Australia-tracked, so that you have an AML and CTF, all that in place.
Yep.
What's happening now globally is all this is starting to be regulated. So the reason we're setting up in Malta is to actually set up, we'll have both. We'll have virtual financial assets or ICO utility tokens, and we'll have security tokens. There's two parts. Both of them will actually be regulated as an EU regulated license. So the Malta Financial Exchange will be actually regulated to trade both, and it's good. It'll actually give people confidence that on both cases. So, for example, the security tokens, we are licensed like a normal exchange. We've got market integrity rules. We have to match MiFID. We have all the normal rules of setting up an exchange.
Okay. So we've got. If I just want to clarify, because this is really important, we've got security tokens.
That's correct.
We've got what I think traditionally we've been talking about as utility tokens. I think the technical name you've used is virtual financial assets, or
that's correct.
VFA. That's a new one for us out there, guys. We're working with this. I love the technique out, but everyone's got their terms. But there's also cryptocurrency traded, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, and things like that on the platform.
That's correct.
Okay, this is key. Now, I just want to understand now, because I think there's some key fundamentals, and then we can really let's ask. I want to understand some more components. But
sure.
How do you define a security token? Tell us what is that?
Okay, so for all intents and purposes, a security token is backed by an asset. So in our world, it sits on the same blockchain layer. There's different technologies to do it on blockchain, but there's different technical names, the hyperledgers, the ERC, the Ethereum network. So putting the technical part of it aside, but it's a token is an instrument, and from a security token point of view, it's an asset-backed instrument.
So what's an example of like in a security, like an asset?
Sure. So what we're seeing is for people that the beauty of it is where it's going to be very, very popular. What a security token allows us to do, or an asset-backed token, where it comes in really, really useful, is if you want to raise a lot of money. So if you want to do a gold mine, or you want to actually build a property, or you want to build something, if you need a lot of capital, and the cost of capital would be high, you use the security token where you can raise from lots and lots of people small amounts of money to do big projects. So we'll see a lot of it with gold-backed tokens, property. The last 2 months since we've been up and running, we've had that many inquiries from people that need to raise money. And for example, if you want to have a gold mine, you normally go to a bank and say, listen, I want 50 million to go actually excavate the gold. You probably have trouble. Or where you got to go to. So the gold-backed token, the token holder they put up the 50 million, all the security token holders, they actually extract gold, and the token holder, it's backed by the stream of the gold. Okay. So the beauty is people are holding that token, they know behind the token is a gold stream, and there's a secondary market then. They can sell that token to other people.
Gotcha.
Everybody's a winner.
Okay, so just a couple of other more clarifying questions, I think it's important. Can you trade a security token, so one of these, say example, this gold token, against crypto and fiat?
Okay, so that's our intention. So from a licensing point of view in Malta, the idea is once we're up and running, you'll be able to trade, and the beauty is with the security token, this will settle in real time, not like the T+2 we have in the legacy world today,
right.
But you can use fiat, You can use crypto, you can pay for whatever mechanism you'd like to use. And so the idea is you can cross-collateralize physical fiat, crypto, anything you need to do to pay for that security token. So that's the beauty of the model we're going with.
Okay. And the final, we'll just kind of lay down some foundations here is, can you trade a security token, so a gold token, for example, and then maybe you had a silver mine, can you trade them between them? Will you be able to trade a gold mine token for a silver mine token?
Oh, I think that's down the track. Initially, it'll just think of it like you're trading on a traditional stock market. These tokens look like shares, and you'll buy and sell shares.
Because you can't trade a Google stock for an Amazon stock.
That's right. So today you'd need to go to sell your Google stock, get cash, and then go back in and buy the other one. So I think simplistically to get it going, security token exchanges will work the same way. You'll buy something, you'll sell it, and then move on to the next asset. So but the flexibility of using fiat or crypto to buy and sell.
Right. Eventually, could you trade? Those two, could they pair on the exchange?
It makes sense. So for example, we're starting off as a centralized exchange. Now everybody's looking at this down the track of what happens in a decentralized world. So the beauty, it's all about innovation. And what this whole new world is, it allows people like us to come in with a clean sheet with technology people and build a whole new ecosystem. So again, we're starting off more centralized, but you can see the technology that people are coming up with, which it'll totally revolutionise the industry. So these ideas, I'm getting presented every day, people that are coming up with astounding concepts. So the innovation will come from everywhere.
Okay, I want to talk about, so let's get really to some spicy topics around this. Okay, so we've got existing markets trading legacy securities right now, right? Yes. So you can buy your Amazon stock, you can buy, your Citibank, whatever it may be, on an exchange. How does the security token exchange fit with the existing market?
Yep, that's a real good question. So just as a quick story to that, I'm here at Cybos all week. So there's a whole industry just up the road here of all the banks and payments and everybody around the world that are all looking at what happens to this new world, where in the new world, as a security token exchange, we don't need a stockbroker. We don't need the crypto exchange deals directly with the client. The crypto exchange deals with the bank. So we're removing layers everywhere in terms of what needs to be done. When you think about it, even the smart contracts behind the security token, it knows all about the dividend, it knows all about the AML, it knows all about what's going on here. So it strips out layers what we don't need as well. We don't need the registry layers or the registry reporting. From a dividend point of view, it's built into the infra. So when you think about
So the exchange itself will have that information?
It has all that information programmed in the smart contract. So, and the people that deal today with crypto exchanges, as you know, when you deal with it, you don't need to go through a broker anymore. If you're buying Bitcoin, you sign up directly to the exchange, you buy and sell your Bitcoin, there's no broker involved, the exchange is doing everything. So think about what the crypto exchanges are doing today, and imagine if that became a new world stock exchange.
Okay.
So we stripped that much, those layers.
Let's get brutal. Why is MDX? Why is it going to crush the ASX or the New York Stock Exchange?
I think in terms of crushing, I think let's not use the word crush right now. But when you look at
sorry, I'm a little bit
but it's a very, very good question. It's a great question. So there's two different markets we're talking about here. But one of the interesting things, if you look at the traditional stock exchange world, it's been built up over a long period of time. It has certain costs and everything. So if you look at the ASX particularly, the ASX makes around $450 million a year in profit. What's interesting, it pays out 90% of that in dividends out to that, which is great. I'm all for the high profit companies. But the problem is we've got to think about it as a country, as Australia. What we want is we want to get money from investors and use it to build this country. We want to build companies. We want to help startups grow. So all that money, what we want is, when exchanges were traditional, they're utilities, we want much lower margins. We want that money to go back into SMEs and help grow the Australian economy. I have a 22-year-old son. He's computer science. We want our kids to have jobs. So what we need to do is get a lot lower friction from the investors in here, in Australia and everywhere around the world. How do we get that money into the SME market, help companies raise money? We need to extract that cost. Same in the US. In the US, for example, there's 12 stock exchanges, but they're owned by 3 companies. And the US regulators, the Attorney General, have said too, that potentially they're not acting in the interest of the shareholders or the individuals. So we need a better way of moving money from investors into the Australian economy and help companies grow. So we've got equity crowdfunding, we've got other things, but how do we accelerate that process? And this won't crush the ASX, but what we need to do is have a better way, a lower cost way of doing it, where the money goes into the startups, into the economy, and provides competition. I think we need a healthy competition is what we need.
Trying to grow industry and trying to build, I guess, get the money to the actual projects and the businesses that are going to employ people, that is going to build the new future technologies and companies of all these countries, right? That you're going to help.
It's exactly right. So if we can do it that way, so the Australian government, we're doing a great job with equity crowdfunding, the Jobs Act. So the basics are there. What we now need to do is equity crowdfunding is provide a secondary market so people can buy and sell these shares and provide liquidity. So let's go the next step. And so the reason we're doing it in Malta is because from that point of view, it's a lot more, it's corporations law has been rewritten to handle distributed ledger. We need to do the same in Australia. We need to move that forward and provide the same kind of capabilities in Australia. So we don't want to fall behind. So
let's talk about raising money. So we've got this new idea of an STO, a security token offering.
That's correct. Yep.
And we've got the existing one of an IPO, or an initial public offering, which goes to a share market currently.
Yes.
Tell us, what's sort of the difference here? Like, how do you see that sort of playing out? Do you think STOs are the future?
Yeah, I think an STO, there's room for both utility and security. I think the number one thing we need to do is first regulate. I think they both serve a place. So the utility token and the security token. I think once we've regulated, and you talked about before, the good news now with Fidelity coming in and providing custody service, so that'll lift this whole area. We need to get credibility in it. For it to go the next step, it doesn't matter whether it's a utility token or a security token. We need to regulate, and then we need to move forward. So there's some superb tech here that both of them have a unique place. I think what we now need to do is, as you know, no one's done a security token. We've actually got to go do one. So obviously the race is on, like we are with the Malta Digital Exchange, to issue the first one of these security tokens. But then I
guess there's been security tokens issued, but not traded on an exchange.
Correct, and that's the point.
I guess a decentralized exchange, they have been traded.
They have been, but
now they're getting delisted, I've noticed.
Well, it's going to be hard on them. That's right. So there's two parts, as you said. The way in the industry, there's a primary market, which is the capital raise, and the secondary market, which is trading those tokens. So from our point of view, we want to provide both services, but as you said, they're being done today, and your question about centralised, decentralised, the whole point is we need to ensure that this is all done to protect investors' interests. So why we're centralised on the trading, on the custody and everything right now to get started. But the key point about it all is we need to do one of these in anger globally and raise some serious money and prove the concept that the security token can be used to fund big infrastructure projects to raise capital. Right. That's my purpose right now.
And so what do you see, I guess, as the main assets? What type of companies do you think are going to, list? There's obviously, there's lots of stocks out there, and they can be represented in terms of all sorts of different ways. But what do you see as the first few companies joining?
Yeah, I think so. We're working with quite a few of them right now. So a lot of them will be in the space of infrastructure. So they're gold-backed token. They're setting up a gold mine. There's a couple we're working with in the space of the lithium. There's lots of property. If you've got a lot of big property construction projects, we'll use the security token as a process. Really interesting ones. There's a whole bunch of fintech, the environmental ones. So we're talking to people that want to build big solar farms, all those ones. We've got the Hepburn one here, so community projects. Security tokens will be great for those big infrastructure plays. So I think for the environment, there'll be lots of people that want to get in there and leverage this, raising money from lots and lots of people to do environmental projects. So there's things we can't do today.
Funds or even EFTs or things like that? What about those kinds of securities?
Yeah, you'll see that too. So there's some very clever people out there that are, when we've got the individual tokens, then people can go do fund of funds. So they can go and tokenize a token. Yep. And so we'll start to see blends of tokens, and then we start having ETFs, exchange traded funds.
Yes.
We have sector-based things. So for an SMSF investor, the best thing you could do is buy individual tokens or start blending them. So the techniques that are done in the traditional trading world, they'll all move in, or the investing world will move into the security token world.
Any types of tokens you're worried that won't be able to be tokenized? Securities or assets you think that can't be tokenized terribly well, or you're worried about?
Oh, not worried. I think it lends itself, if the security token lends itself to lots of small investors raising money. So if you want to control the shares, so if people want to have, they like you're a startup. In some cases, security token, it's probably not initially designed for that purpose. It'll be better on the ones where from a capital raising point of view for infra, but I think as time progresses, the technology will change and people will find a lot more uses for these areas.
So any sort of companies you can tell us that have signed on?
Yeah, actually, we'll do a press release next week.
Okay.
We're one of our first ones. So our time frame, the licensing that we're doing will probably run into February, March next year. So we're being licensed again as an EU exchange. So Malta releases next week, the first week of November, the licensing process. So we all start applying. So our time frame is sort of mid to end, first quarter next year. And so I'm hoping, and I'd love to share it, but it needs a little bit more before we can get all the bits signed. But next week we'll share the
Everyone's like
first one.
gagging right now.
Yeah, you'll see it next week. It's I would love to, man. You know I'd love to. If I could share it, I'd share it right here. But you'll see that in the press, hopefully Monday or Tuesday, because it's a global release. It's an offshore company listing on the exchange with exactly that. It'll be a gold-backed token, which we think is will start a lot of the interest in this area.
Fantastic. Let's talk about tokenizing existing securities like shares. So on the Nasdaq or New York Stock Exchange, let's say that one share is traded for a security token. How do you sort of envisage that movement from a traditional exchange over to the digitized or security exchange?
Sure. It's a really interesting question. If you look at any exchange in the world, any traditional exchange, there's a large percentage of the companies on the exchange that have a very low market cap, and it's expensive to sit on a traditional exchange. So in the new world, what the challenge is for us is to strip out a lot of the costs of listing and staying on the exchange and make it more economical for some of these people to come off the traditional exchange and go onto the new exchange. Yes. The big IPOs will still happen on the traditional exchanges because there's all the infrastructure and all that's in place, but we'll see a shift where if it's more cost effective to be listed on one of these new exchanges, they'll move across. But it'll be choice. If people want to list in this country or any country, and if it's suitable, they'll compare what does it cost on a traditional exchange. We've got the Australian Stock Exchange, the National Stock Exchange, and
so they could list on both.
You can list on both, absolutely.
And then could you like if you were to delist off one, I guess it's kind of like you, and then you list on the security tokens exchange. Would there be like a burning or something like that, or how do you envisage that?
Well, we have it today. So in the US, where people move between exchanges, so they just delist from one exchange, they issue new shares on the new one. It'd be a similar process. So the burning's probably more blockchain or crypto to crypto exchange. Yes. But in the traditional one, you would just delist the shares there.
Right.
As in the corporation's law, you'd get all the shareholders to agree and you'd move from one to the other one. So
I suppose then if you're going from the crypto exchange to the traditional exchange, if you're going the other way, you'd probably burn the tokens.
That's exactly right. It would be the traditional sense of you're on a blockchain, you've got tokens there, whatever format they're in, that's right. You burn those ones and you move across. So, and I think there'll be activity as people take ICOs, the normal coins, utilities, and move them over to security tokens as they move forward.
Okay, let's talk about. I want to talk about KYC and identity.
Yeah.
So, and I guess it's just kind of different countries around the world have different jurisdictions and laws and the ways in which they handle securities and shares and things like that. Given this is going to be global,
absolutely,
from the beginning, which is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. How do you sort of see the KYC process working?
Right. So, and exactly to your point, one of the fascinating things about this, it is all global. So what we're building, the capital movement will go global really, really quickly. And so if you're raising money for an Australian startup, why should you be tied to Australian investors? We should be able to open this up globally. So But the number one problem is exactly that. So AML, CTF, and partly why I'm at Sybos all week is looking at some of the global best practices there. So IBM, KPMG, the big firms are really looking closely at that problem. So one of the problems today is, and with all the new laws in the EU about data privacy, so there's very clever people working on that problem where they're calling it triple blind AML, where you don't give the exchange any more information than what they need to do to actually make you a client and make sure that you pass AML CTF tests. So the beauty we've got, we can start with a clean sheet of paper and take the best tech in the world so that obviously the intention is you can just sign up online with giving exactly the amount of information we need to satisfy the regulators in EU and Asia. So you'll see a lot about this triple blind and all new techniques. And again, we're not hampered by traditional legacy infrastructure when we're doing AML CTF. We can bring in the best tech stacks in the world. And people like IBM Research and everyone else and Thomson Reuters, all these are working heavily at getting all that to work.
So maybe can you just step us through that? So, so say I'm from the UK and I go on the Malta Digital Exchange and I buy a token of a gold token.
Right.
And then I go on to sell it. And it's someone else from Asia in Singapore purchases it.
Yes.
They have different requirements. And I guess there's reporting requirements of this company as to where it is. How are you going to handle that, I guess, identifying who owns that security?
Right. So two parts. So because I mentioned before, and for the intermediate time, will be centralised when it comes to AML. So there's a lot of decentralised solutions out there right now, but from a regulatory point of view, it needs to be centralised. So everybody has to have an account with us.
Yep.
And we've done the AML. So we know you, your company. We know from a regulatory point of view that you're entitled to buy that and you pass the AML CTF test. So yeah, so then you just buy and sell. So from our point of view, in our custodian, we have our own blockchain. In our case, it's Hyperledger from the Linux, from IBM. And it records in the smart contract all your details. And we know it's you. And this is the beauty. This is what's so good about security tokens. So on a utility token or a Bitcoin, if you lose that Bitcoin, it's gone for good. By definition, they're anonymous. The beauty with security tokens is we know who you are. And so it'll be in your wallet with us and you'll see your bits and pieces. But these security tokens, because they're identified in the smart contract, if you lose your wallet, you just need to get back in touch with us and say, hey, listen, I've lost my wallet and I don't have my security token anymore. We'll just reissue them to you. Once we prove who you are, you get them all back. So one of the downsides still of crypto and putting Bitcoin, putting aside custody right now, it's the anonymity that makes it a problem. If you can identify people properly and do all those, the beauty of security tokens, you can't lose them. That's the upside.
But say, can I? So let's go back to that. I buy this token, which is a gold token, and then off market, can I sell that token to someone else and then transfer it through the blockchain like a Bitcoin?
Well, and that's something that we need to look at. To get started, we'll stay centralised because from a regulatory, a bit of techno mumbo jumbo, but we're setting up what's called a multilateral trading facility for the security tokens.
That's pretty intense.
That's the word of the day.
Give that a bell, Rick.
Give that a bell, man.
Multi-layer.
Multilateral trading facility, right? Which is an EU term for a stock exchange. And so to get started, we're going to start with the immediate problem is just to trade as on a secondary market, person to person. Off market is a whole new world that we'll get to, but we'll do it step by step. But that is the natural extension, that people can off-market within each other.
Yes.
We just need to work out how that's going to work, because you're absolutely right. Exchange parameters. So what happens if I'm on this exchange, I want to go to that one? How's it going to work?
Yes.
And there's a lot of people working on technology to make tokens portable between technologies. Right. So I'm going from ERC20, I'm going from here to there. I'm moving tech layers and I'm moving between exchanges. So again, though, there's lots of very, very smart people around the world that are working on that particular problem.
Okay. Fascinating stuff, because I think the portability of the security token, I think, is something which people would very much like. Do you see it as being, initially the traders being retail, accredited investors, or who do you see using the system to start with?
Again, another good question. So by definition with the security token, we want lots and lots of retail to open accounts so that when someone wants to raise capital to do a project, we've got a very large amount of clients that can fund that particular project. Again, whatever the project is. So initially, we'll have lots and lots of people that come in. and open accounts, and we're going to have no shortage of people that we've got projects, really interesting projects all over the world. Now, one of our big advantages is, as you said before, because of the history of what we've been building, we're plugged into the Thomson Reuters, Bloomberg, so you'll actually, the day we go live, you'll see it on all the Thomson Reuters and Bloomberg terminals all over the world. So one of the issues today with crypto, it doesn't have much distribution, whereas for us, what we see day one is it needs to be out to the retail, but it needs to be on the institutional desks as well. So that's our big competitive advantage in the market, which is, I think, how we're going to be able to help these people with their projects raise the capital from insto and from retail clients.
Yeah. Let's talk about, I guess there's STOs and ICOs right now, and obviously ICOs in a current form traditionally. There are some, I guess, that'd be very close to securities. They're utility tokens. They're not offering any equity. They're really just the function in and of themselves. And I guess, why do you think people are going to move towards this equity model? How do you think it'll affect the industry?
The security token model?
Yes.
I think they'll move there because we haven't moved forward in the traditional industry. It still takes 2 days to settle a share. Right. It's amazing the technology. We can move money around the world with many, many vendors. And so, but we're still stuck in a world where...
I guess the traditional ICOs, they're sort of been... And in what they've been doing...
Yes.
Versus these STOs, why do you think this STOs is going to be the next thing?
Sorry, between ICOs. So I think it's all about regulation. And I think from all purposes, as we all know, we had a good run last year. We're ending up now. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of concern around the ICO utility token area. And what it really needs is we need to get in there and we need to start regulating. We need to give the confidence back to the industry from a capital raising point of view. So a lot of people got into these, and unfortunately now they may have got not the best experience with this area. So
you're being very polite, Rick.
I'm being very polite, and I'm sure your viewers out there, if we do a show of hands, I'm sure there's a lot of hands there, that people that have found out. But like everything, we need to, unfortunately, no one wants regulation, but we need to regulate because this is people's superannuation, their retirement savings. We need to make sure that people have confidence. What's holding the industry back now? And we talked about it before about custody on Bitcoin, but we need to go do some projects. We need to demonstrate to the world that this technology works. It's a far better mousetrap in terms of capital raising and help grow economies and countries. So I think everyone will flock to it, and it just needs a regulated exchange up and running quickly and a couple of projects to get up and running to demonstrate to the world that this technology works.
Yes. Tell us, I guess in terms of security tokens, other than that, are there any other trends you're seeing in the market right now that's interesting you?
Oh, Sidebus is amazing. I was over there. It's just as an aside to all this, it's just the innovation is astounding. What's going on around the world? Sidebus says Brett King, he's the innovation officer for DBS, which is a global Asian bank, and he raised it amazingly that everybody, these large companies are all there, and they're all talking about innovating, but in the end, what it's all about, innovation, disruption, they're all just words right now. We've actually got to give a better deal to the end client, to the investor, the people out there. So this whole world, everybody's wondering who's it's going to disrupt next. And so you can feel it at these big corporate events. Sidebus is a £3,000 or £4,000 for a ticket to get in there, and you can just see that, you can just feel it walking around, that everybody's looking over their shoulder about what do we have to do to make sure we also don't get steamrolled by this technology, because people have big profits to protect in the industry, and so this is scary. And so it's, but again, if we can, it gives the power back to the people. There's some terrific projects out there on blockchain, there's voting, there's great Aussie projects, and the important point, and as always, all our development's done here in Melbourne, in Australia. So from my point of view, yes, we're a Malta exchange, but all the tech is built down in Melbourne with Australians. So helping up, there's some very, very clever people in Australia. They're at our crypto thing last night, really, really smart people. So our challenge also, yes, it's Malta, but the tech is all Australian. So it's giving Australians job and just demonstrating how smart. I get to spend a lot of time all over the world, but we've got some super clever people in Australia. What we've got to do is now get jobs to the kids and get them out there, because some of the best techos in the world all come from Australia.
Yep. Any predictions for 2019?
It's going to be a big disruptive year. That's the number one thing I see is as you wander around.
Who's going to hurt the most?
I think there's a lot of big players with established profits that it's all now, as we get into what blockchain's about, is about transparency. And so if you're not transparent with your client, if there's pockets of capital or there's costs, what Bitcoin's going to do is expose all this cost. As we get distributed ledgers and if we can lower the cost of capital raising, who's going to be left is all these people with big profit centers that aren't adding value to the end client. And so there's lots and lots of middlemen in this industry. And so if you're a middleman and you're not actually getting your cost base in order, you're going to be disrupted. And I think 2019 is a year of disruption for these big guys.
Do you have any coins that you have a favourite coin?
I'm a Bitcoin person from a long time ago. So I've been playing with, I had a node at home very early and playing around. So whilst I've been working in the traditional area, I've always kept my eye and looking for the opportunity for moving out of the traditional world into the crypto. It's for me, it's refreshing to get back into what is technically a startup. It's a very large startup we're running now, but the coin is the concept is astounding, and there's again very, very clever people out all over the world. I did the crypto cruise around the Mediterranean and met some astounding people that are building projects. And so if you look at globally, the amount of R&D, all the people, the smart developers, smart business guys are all moving into this particular area of blockchain because it's where the future is.
We've got, there is a question we ask everyone on the show.
Sure.
It's 12 o'clock, 2018. It's just dinged over to 2019. What's the price of Bitcoin?
Yeah, you know, it's, you want me to do the John McAfee one, right? So that one there. So, you know, one of the nice parts is, and I'm glad you got the disclaimer, we don't give advice.
We don't give this is no financial advice.
So I'll answer the question back to front. And so I spent 3 months at every blockchain event around the world, and the cleverest people actually don't go there, but it's an amazing thing. So John McAfee's standing by his one, I think it was 100, what John's saying. So I kind of think, especially if we can rapidly get this custody part up and running, if we can get it in time and get that confidence back, it'll definitely go up. It's just, right now is that lull. We just got to get this organised, so from an investor confidence point of view, but it'll go up. Where it'll go, I don't know. And again, unfortunately, I'm from that legacy stockbroking world, so I stay away from giving advice, but it'll have to go up. It's one of those ones, scarcity, once it gets more regulated, the AML problems get sorted and everything else, it's still a clever idea, and everything we do is based on the whole blockchain Bitcoin idea. So it'll go up. Excuse me, I don't know how far.
Sure. Let's move on. Rick, so Fidelity now has announced they are offering a custody solution. Fidelity's that's a major heavyweight in an institutional.
One of the biggest, right?
They have. They're offering a ways to trade Bitcoin Ether to institutions such as hedge funds, endowments, and family offices, but not retail traders. So they're literally ignoring the market that exists today and going straight to the new market that we don't have currently in the market as such. I guess there are ways in which they are getting involved. And they're offering a cold storage crypto custody solution. In other words, a great place to store your cryptocurrency, right? Mike Novogratz has already, from Galaxy Digital, said they'll sign on to be a customer immediately. Is this big news?
Well, it is. Even
why does this matter?
Well, it matters even for an exchange like ourselves. Like, we need a custody solution for our Malta exchange for Bitcoin, because right now, heaven forbid, but and going forward, a regulated entity anywhere in the world, they generally have capital reserves to make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen. And so it's all about confidence. So it's a little bit of a problem that it's not for retail yet, it's only for the instos. So that'll help the institutionals move into the industry, but we still need that retail, because, and there's a few companies that are doing it, but again, we need to give the retail investor the same confidence they've got when they invest in a traditional market, that their assets are protected when they move into a new market, for the industry to mature. So
I think what's really important here, right, so a lot of trading has been done by institutions, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. They've been their products, financial products, which are linked to the Bitcoin price.
Right. Yes.
This again comes back to being physically, like helping to facilitate physically settled and delivered Bitcoin. Yes. Actual coins themselves.
Yes.
And again, that has just. Do you think that's got to put demand pressure that we've never seen before? Do you think?
I think so. I think once that people have confidence that we've had, unfortunately, too many instances where hundreds of millions goes missing. If people are confident that this is backed, like again, in a traditional exchange, an exchange has a capital reserve to protect against all that kind of thing. So if an institution, the last thing they want to, they've got retail investors, a super fund, whatever they are here in Australia, they've got a duty of care to all their people that are in that fund. So the beauty is once the institution knows that money is backed through whatever the custody thing, they'll start pushing it more. And that's so it'll just broaden it out when people know that the end investor's capital is protected.
All right, guys, we're going to close up here. Final prices, Bitcoin trading at $6,471, Ethereum 202, Bitcoin Cash 445, EOS at $5.44, super sideways, Ripple 46 cents, Ethereum Classic $9.79, and Binance Coin $9.87. Binance Coin used to be a real all-time favorite. Zcash up a bit, and market but is very, very, very sideways. Not much volatility right now.
Nope.
Making it, I guess, relatively hard to trade. But Rick, thank you so much for coming on and joining us at the Daily Exchange. It was an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure. And what did you promise me before I go?
One last thing before we go. Rick is going to ring the bell to sign us off. But guys, do subscribe. Do join us. You can see Rick. Follow him on Twitter. He's got some incredible stuff with the Multilateral Exchange. Rick, ding us off. Let's.
Thank you, Fred, and thank you to the Finder guys. And we're out of here.